There'll be food and drink and ghosts. And perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
Today's video is a somewhat special one because it has what I believe to be the funniest horror movie kill of all time. Greetings everyone and welcome back to Dunwich Manor. Today I'm talking to you guys about Prophecy. Prophecy is a 1979 creature feature about a mutant bear that goes on a killing spree mainly because of paper mill pollution. Now I know all this sounds really strange and random, but if I could, I just want to ask you all to just bear with me.
See that? That right there is why Dunwich is the go. Come here, come get a look at this. Look at what? You see that right there?
Bear with me.
Bro, that's just so fire.
Alright, that was way too much time and effort for a really stupid joke, but honestly that's kind of what I do here. So, let's just get back into it. Honestly, for the most part, this movie isn't too bad. In fact, for the most part, I would say it's actually pretty solid. But sadly, the issue for this movie is the bear itself and the kills. The bear looks good in glimpses, but when you actually see it in full body, it looks pretty goofy. So the bear's goofy, the kills are goofy, and you know, in a lot of horror movies, this is fine, like you get a lot of that in Friday the 13th. The issue is this movie takes itself extremely seriously, so that a serious atmosphere paired with goofy kills and a goofy antagonist, it kind of ruins the flow and feel of the movie. But I've said enough, let's actually take a look at the movie. The movie begins with what appears to be a search party. It's a little hard to see what's happening because it's so dark, but the credits are rolling and we see what appears to be like a rescue search team running through the woods. It is in fact so dark, however, that one of the dogs in the search party runs off a cliff. A few members go down to try to rescue the dog, but end up getting killed by something down at the bottom of this cliff, and it sounds pretty pissed off. Later, we're introduced to the protagonist of the film, Dr. Robert Verne. Pretty early on, he's approached by a man from the Environmental Protection Agency who wants him to write a report on a conflict happening between some loggers and some Native Americans that own the land. Robert decides to go for a change of scenery, and he brings along his wife, who is actually pregnant, but he is not aware of that yet. When they actually land in the area that they'll be working, we're lucky enough to see that one of the dogs from the beginning is actually being airlifted and did survive. And the dog looks a little funny just hanging there in the air.
Well, not exactly. We're gonna be in a cabin.
We're gonna be outside, by a river.
Nice kid. Hope everything goes well for him. Later, Doc from The Thing shows up and gives them a ride to the cabin that they'll be staying in. And Doc explains to Verne that some loggers have been going missing around the area, and the natives think that it's a creature called, let me check this, Mutated. I think I'm pronouncing that right. We'll see.
That's one of their legends. They call it Mutated.
As they're making their way to camp, we see that tensions between the loggers and natives have gotten pretty high. In fact, we even get to see a really dope axe versus chainsaw fight that kind of came out of nowhere, but I am glad I got to see it. Once they get to the cabin, Verne is out on the lake fishing when he actually sees a duck get pulled under the water by something, and then he sees an enormous fish come out of the water. And I'm like 99% sure that it was just a dude's arm and like a giant fish puppet just moving across the water, but that's okay, it's 79, I'll let it slide. John Hawk is a local Native American that's kind of the leader of the local tribe. He pulls Verne aside and tells him about their way of life and how the loggers are negatively affecting them. And a tribal elder jumps in the conversation, explaining how things in that part of the forest seem to grow especially large. In fact, he even shows a gigantic tadpole that was like the size of a cat.
It's a tadpole. I told you things grow big here.
Which is pretty insane. Once Verne learned that animals seem to grow big around one pond in particular, he decides to check it out. Once he visits the pond, he realizes that that pond is actually connected to the same river that the paper processing mill is on. After taking a tour of the paper mill, he realizes that there's in fact methyl mercury poisoning in the water, which is causing all kinds of deformities and growths in the nature in the area.
Rob, what is it?
It's methyl mercury poison, that's what it is.
This also means that there's a bunch of weird birth defects because of the water, and that's really bad news for Verne's wife because she's pregnant, right? Which means that the methyl mercury could affect the fetus that's growing inside of her. Now that Verne knows about the methyl mercury poisoning, he has to get evidence to support this case. So he decides to go out and collect a blood sample from an animal. Now we swap over to see the family that was going camping in the beginning. This is the family of the little boy that was greeting them at the airport. And this is also where the funniest kill ever happens. They're all sleeping peacefully in camp when we finally get our first glimpse at the movie's monster. It really is a tragedy. This movie has good acting, good dialogue, good cinematography, and then the kills come in and just takes you right out of it. So to show you what I'm talking about, I present to you the funniest kill I've ever seen. See, the creature design in short glimpses is great. It looks pretty cool. But when the camera lingers on it too long, it really just kind of ruins it. You see how fake it is. With the family now dead, the loggers automatically accuse the Native Americans of killing the family. So they bring in the police to try to arrest them. Because it makes total sense that somebody could punch another person so hard that they fly into a rock at Mach 5 and burst into a pile of feathers. Later, our two protagonists find two deformed bear cubs, and they decide to try to take them back to town to use as evidence for the methylmercury poisoning. Unfortunately, at the same time, a storm has started, which means that they can't take aircraft into town yet. They head back to the Native American teepees and are luckily able to show the police and paper mill owner that the methylmercury poisoning is in fact causing these deformities and aggression. Right in the middle of all this, of course, the mutated bear shows up and just starts killing people. The group starts running and the bear follows them, and for some reason we get this really cool shot of fire being reflected in the Native American elder's eyes. I don't know where the shot came from, but it's really cool. Honestly starting to think that he might have been the main character all along. The next morning, the owner of the paper mill decides to go out and try to find some transportation, but sadly all he finds is his own demise. What would be a worse way to die? Being mauled to death by a mutated bear, or by having your hands bitten off by the thing? Leave your answer in the comments. John Hawk and the rest of the survivors are able to find a vehicle, but sadly the mutant bear just trashes that thing. They all come to a lake and everybody starts swimming except for the native elder. He stays behind and tries to communicate with what he believes to be a Native American legend. Perhaps his wisdom and connection with nature will help him to calm this mutated... Never mind. The others swim across the lake and the bear follows them, just end up drowning.
It's time!
I'm kidding, he's fine and just super pissed off. They finally make it back to the cabin where they have a final face-off against the bear. John Hawk gets killed pretty quickly. Dude just gets flung like a rag doll, just like everybody else. But Vern is able to grab one of John Hawk's arrows and stab the shit out of the bear right in the face and ends up killing it. The film ends with Vern and his wife successfully flying away in a plane, living out a life where everything is happy and well. Oh, except for that. That seems like it could be a problem. So that was Prophecy. Not really an award-winning movie, but also not too bad of a movie. And also not one that many people talk about. I'd say if you like creature features or 70s horror films in particular, it could be worth checking out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and make sure to go follow me over on Instagram. Thank you for coming to Dunwich Manor, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.